Thank you. I guess this is a little bit of a change of pace from everything else that we've been hearing, lots of metals and gold and lithiums and rare earths, but I'm going to talk to you a bit about helium and about noble helium and what we're doing, chasing what we think potentially is the world's largest green helium reserve in Tanzania. In a marketplace that I think is very exciting and part of the reason I guess that a lot of people have been attracted to look for helium now. So why do we need helium? What's important about helium? Some of you may have seen some recent media from the medical industry getting very concerned about the sale of the US Federal Reserve and what impact that might have on helium availability for MRIs, which are a big user of helium. But it's also absolutely underpins global technology, fibre optic cables, and the big growth driver at the moment is it's an unsubstitutable import into the manufacture of semiconductors. And obviously semiconductors are in everything: your kids' toys, your phones, your cars, and obviously AI that's really taking off now is a big consumer as well. So it's growing quite quickly. At the moment it's about a US $5 billion wholesale market. Predicted to grow to about 8 billion by 2030, so moving along pretty quickly. And of course the other big use is rocket launches, purging fuel systems, keeping tanks pressurised when they're flying, etc. And this is probably the thing that I think people are struggling to get their head around in respect of helium. If we do a comparison, and what this is comparing is the Tier 1 long-term wholesale price of helium at the moment, which is about 450 US an MCF, compared to the Australian gas cap of $12 an MCF. And you can see that there's a massive difference. And fundamentally what that means is that we, as a helium producer, I need to produce about 1.7% of the production to get the same revenue line as I would from a gas project. So what that means is that the size of the resource that I need, the flows that I need to get, the production I need to produce, and therefore the costs that go with producing that are very, very small, but I can still have a significantly valuable and high revenue producing project. So keep that in mind. So North Rukwa is one of 4 project areas that we have in Tanzania. Tanzania is a unique geology for helium. So helium is produced through the radioactive decay of uraniums and thoriums in the crust. So you need crust of a certain age to have produced that inventory of helium, which we have in the Tanzanian craton. But then what's very special about Tanzania is that it's an active rifting system. And when I say active, over the last several 100 million years, we've seen a lot of rifting, upthrusting, heating, etc. And what that's done is that's released all of that helium inventory out into the surrounding rocks, and it's migrating, and obviously as a gas wants to find its way to the lowest point of pressure, so heading towards the surface. We've drilled our first 2 wells in Mbalele in Tanzania, and what we've seen so far is we encountered about a 10 to 15 metre free gas cap, quite close to surface. The way we were set up to drill, being our first well in a new basin, we weren't in a position to test that at that time. And across the two wells, significant, very high permeability and great porosity reservoirs, over a millidarcy in some of those reservoirs. 148 metres of net reservoir in Mbalele 1, 271 metres of net reservoir in Mbalele 2. So a significant and high quality reservoir that has the potential to flow very, very well. Our helium concentration up to 2.46%. Which doesn't seem like much, but that is very, very material. There are a few places in the world where you have helium at that concentration. We also, interestingly, saw some significantly above atmospheric hydrogen in the first 350 metres of the second well as well, which obviously we want to go back and test. So I guess just to put that into context for you, where 2.46% sits when we look at the production of helium in other places around the world. And fundamentally, 95% of the world's helium is produced as a byproduct of natural gas production. So Qatar, for example, produces about 30% of the world's helium. It's 0.05% of their gas stream. Clearly, they produce a lot of gas through LNG, and that then concentrates the helium to allow it to be produced separately. The issue with that, though, of course, is that it's a fossil fuel, but secondly, that the helium production is regulated by the gas production, and when the gas production stops, the helium stops as well. Right at the moment, we're in the middle of helium shortage 4.0, primarily caused by issues going on within Russia. Initially, the Amur gas plant had an explosion, which stopped their gas production and hence their helium production, and then, of course, the issues going on with the Ukraine at the moment mean that no helium's being exported out of Russia. And I think what else that's done is that it's opened the eyes of a lot of the mid-tier guys, the big industrial gas producers, that they really need some geopolitical diversity and to try and get away from the fossil fuel connection, hence where we come into the picture. So what's next for us? We just got our lab results back, which, from our perspective, were very exciting. As I say, the 2.46%. We're able to increase our reservoir size, and obviously the hydrogen shows as well. We're working with the University of Queensland around modelling all of that data to work out our plans to go forward, which include going back and drilling that gas cap and testing that. I think that's important, and potentially there's enough gas in that to underpin our initial project that we're working on. We're developing a small low-cost pilot to depressurise the helium-saturated waters and see what sort of flows that we're going to get out of that. And of course, these are just two wells in a huge basin that clearly is prolific helium-producing basin. We have a neighbour to the south, about 70 k's from us, Helium 1, who are an AIM-listed company. They also drilled a couple of wells. They've seen very similar results to us, high helium contents. As they depressurised their well, they had helium exolving from the water and flowing to surface as well. So it just tells you that this is a massive and prolific and unique helium-producing system. And of course, we continue our discussions with potential off-takers around what we all really want to see out of this is turning it into money. A lot of people are asking about the water, and I guess when we think of gas and water, not necessarily the combination that we want to see, but obviously helium is quite different, and we can't think about it in a conventional gas way, primarily because it's extremely rare, obviously extremely valuable and massively in demand, as I showed you on the earlier table. So with less than 2% of the production, we can still get the same revenue line. And we have seen in multiple tests that we've done on site that mechanically it all works. So as soon as we start to depressurise that water, the helium flows out of it very quickly. Helium 1 to our south saw exactly the same thing. So we don't think that there's any mechanical issues with that. And the water appears to be, fundamentally low saturation gas resource. So we're working on this small low-cost pilot to go and test our theories on that, as I say, working with UQ as well. And fundamentally, it's going to be a function of a number of things. One, helium content, which we know, how quickly it flows, but probably most importantly is what's our recoveries going to be per cost of well. So if we can come up, this is application of my background, CSG technology around some dewatering to depressurise, and we think we can do this in a very simple, low-cost way, which, given the revenue line that we've got, means that the payback on those wells will be very quick. And what it also means is that water's the fundamental pathway for helium through this whole basin, again, as seen by us in Helium 1. So if we can prove this, or once we've proved this and get this a model that's working in Mbalele, that then opens up the whole basin for us, we're talking about nearly 2,000 square kilometres, which is going to be full of helium-saturated waters, low saturation reservoirs. And I'm sure there are, in some of the deeper sections, when we come back and get an opportunity to test that, some free gas that's trapped there as well. As I say, we've got a significant amount of interest from potential off-takers, and we've been working with them. We've mapped out a path in terms of what we need to do over the next 6 months or so, and what they're going to do. From a CapEx perspective, they're very keen to fund the cost of any of the downstream equipment that we need. So for separating the gas from the helium from the nitrogen, which is the main other gas that we've got. And funding that for us, and then we'll just repay that back as we sell them the gas. Basically, they'll offtake from the plant on site, and then it'll be their responsibility to truck that up to the port and off from there. National Power Grid runs through our block, obviously access to water, labour, all the things that we need. And even though it is a relatively remote part of the world, down where we are in Africa, that actually brings with it a number of benefits, in the sense that very welcoming community, excited to have some economic activity that's going to help them, employment, and the government of Tanzania are very supportive. The way the regime works, it's once we move from exploration to development, it's a 16% free carried interest, so they become your joint venture partner. And I really like that model, in the sense that we're aligned. If we don't make any money out of the project, they don't make any money, so they're incentivised to make it work. Just finally, we over quite a period of time, been working with the two foremost helium experts in the world, John Gluius and Chris Ballantyne. Those guys have actually developed a helium atlas for us, which has looked at all of the information they've gathered over a long period of time to pinpoint places in the world where helium would be prospective. Obviously, Tanzania was on the top of the list, and that's why we started there. But we continue to work with the Atlas and think about other areas that might be worth pursuing. Finally, we have a great team of people involved. Obviously, still a small venture, but Justin has a huge amount of experience in Africa and in the East African Rift System where we're working, and leveraging that experience with the work that we're doing now. Alf Garnett, who was just retired as the head of the University of Queensland Natural Gas Research Centre, ex-Shell and Schlumberger executive, a huge amount of experience that, and now that he's retired, he's got plenty more time to help us as well, which is great. Eddie's on the financial side for us, based in Melbourne. Greg Columbus is, some of you may know from some of his other Warrego and other businesses that he's been involved with, but his expertise, particularly as we negotiate with off-take parties on the facility side of things, is going to be very helpful. And Kent Masters, who's the president and CEO of Albemarle, has been a long-term anchor investor in the business, has a lot of experience in Africa and with helium, and is quite excited about where we're heading and what we're doing. So, in summary, I think we're in the right market. Demand for helium is just going through the roof, and particularly green helium, and diversifying geopolitically away from some of the more difficult areas in the world. We think we've got a world-class set of assets here, and we've certainly demonstrated, not just us, but what the results from Helium-1, that this is a prolific and unique helium-producing system, and commercialisation is there, it's in view. That's all I have to say.